Right.
Hello and welcome to Just Another Retrocast.
Hello.
We do have another podcast called The Snooze Button, which is released on Tuesdays.
It is.
Covering TV, pop culture, movie news. If you like that sort of thing, go and listen to that one. We'll just crack straight on because we're a little bit tight on time, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's not going to be very retro, is it? Either?
Not really massively retro.
Well, kind of retro in some sense.
Should we call it Just Another Retrocast then? Or is it just a SNEW with the Crew podcast?
This is just a SNEW with the Crew special because we couldn't be bothered to think of a topic this week.
Well, we kind of did. We're going to be talking about Andy Kaufman, Man on the Moon, the movie, and, of course, the documentary Jim and Andy that's just been released in the last fortnight.
Yep.
So, if you're an Andy Kaufman fan, stick around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, welcome, ladies and gents, to our SNEW with the Crew special on Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start, guys?
I didn't really know much going into watching Jim and Andy.
No?
No.
Had you seen Man on the Moon?
No.
Did you not?
Missed that. I don't mind you
it's an
talking about
amazing film.
Yeah, I've watched it again this week.
Yeah.
I really want to watch it now.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it, even if you hadn't seen Jim and Andy. But as you have, I'd even more recommend it because you suddenly, from watching that documentary, have a whole different perspective on that film.
So, one thing I did realise with watching Man on the Moon again is that when Andy Kaufman sort of convinced people that he'd faked his death, my memory of the movie was that there was a fake death in it and that he resurfaced again. Yeah. But for some reason, because it was, I don't know what happened there, but the way that he fucks with people is so convincing to me that it made me forget the end of the movie.
But then I think with the end of the movie, for a lot of people, it is very confusing because of the Tony Clifton.
Yeah.
Obviously, having seen the documentary but not the film, you know who Tony Clifton is as a character.
Yeah.
And Tony Clifton is still going, and it's not always his writing partner that is him, but there is talk of a real person called Tony Clifton who looks nothing like that, who let them, like, he was fine with them using his name, and then he and the writer occasionally turn up at other shows, like they do the Green Room, which is where a load of comedians sit down and chat about stuff in America, a bit like the show on Dave with Alan Davies. You basically get a load of famous comedians together, British and American and Australian and stuff, and they all sit in a room and they chat, and quite often Tony Clifton would be sat in the background and have two prostitutes with him, and this is like recent, and he'd cause trouble and they'd chuck him out. So those characters are still going. At the end of the actual film, there is a moment where his wife or girlfriend and his manager, played by Danny DeVito, are sat in a club. Tony Clifton comes out and performs, and then the camera moves back through the bar and they're smiling, and then it shows his writing partner sat at the bar, and you're like, well, if it's not his writing partner, who is it? Yeah. And I think a lot of people took that as if he faked his death, but actually it's not that. It's just the fact of, the Tony Clifton character is still happening.
It's
a mind fuck, basically.
Absolutely love the Hugh Hefner bit.
Yeah.
Not to spoil anything, but if you're going to go and watch the documentary,
no. Let's go, if we're going to talk about this, let's just go full spoilers. If you want to watch either of these movies,
go and watch them now.
And then come back to this.
Yeah, fair enough. The bit with Hugh Hefner where Tony Clifton turns up at Hugh Hefner's mansion for a party, and they've warned Hugh Hefner in advance and all his staff that Jim Carrey is going to be turning up as
Tony Clifton.
So they let him into the party, and then Jim Carrey turns up half an hour later.
I love the fact that it's
and
I love the fact that it's Andy Kaufman's actual writing partner and best friend being Tony Clifton.
What's
for that
his name?
whole
Bob's
time.
Munda or something?
Bob's Zamunda. I can never pronounce his surname.
I think it is.
But yeah, like it's genius. It's utter genius. He is Andy Kaufman and Bob are one of my comedy heroes.
Right.
They did things for comedy that no one else had done.
They started this whole kind of, is it Dadaism? I suppose
I'd say it's more in line with what's the guy that did the paintings? I can never. Andy.
Do you mean surrealism?
No. Pop art guy had the nightclub and
Andy Warhol.
Yeah, it's far more in keeping with Andy Warhol's thing of happenings and like tricks and stuff. But they were kind of doing it as an entirely separate thing to that.
Yeah,
and it's just genius. Like, it's obviously a part of Andy Kaufman's imagination from when he was a child and all the things that he wanted to do, which ended up being the special.
Yeah.
Before he died. And
has that been released, the special?
I don't know. I've seen bits of it,
right,
but I've never seen the whole thing, so I don't know if there is a version out there.
Right.
I've looked for it, but never come across it myself.
Have you seen the footage of the first time that he did Tony Clifton?
Yes, yeah, I've seen
really
pretty
character.
much every bit of footage that's ever been. He's a lot of his characters evolved over the time, and I think, like any comedian, that's natural. Like, you look at the version of Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson as Eddie and Rick in Bottom, compared to how they started out on stage as the Dangerous Brothers,
right,
and then merged from Dangerous Brothers into Filthy Rich and Cat Flap into Young Ones and then into Bottom. It kind of, you see the progression of the characters working themselves out, and you can see that with a lot of his characters, even the I can't pronounce it. The foreign
Latvian.
Yeah, no, it's not Latvian.
Is it not Latvian?
Latka.
Latka. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Even that character, you see the early footage of him doing it on stage, and it's very different from the character it became in Taxi, and then to the character it became after that when he hated it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you watch the sort of happiness and joy in him when he's doing it in the early ones. Then you see the anger in Taxi, and then you see the depression in it afterwards.
Yep.
And it's beautiful to be able to watch that. It's
You're right though, in respect to the fact that they treated this whole thing. What I likened it to was what's the film about magicians? The
Illusion.
Prestige?
The Prestige, yes. Yeah.
So I likened it to that, whereas Andy Kaufman is like the Chinese magician with the goldfish bowl.
Yeah.
He lives his life as this character, and you never get to see who the real Andy Kaufman is.
Yeah.
The same way that the old magician guy with the goldfish bowl is probably a really young bloke, but he just walks around with the goldfish bowl under his jacket the whole time.
Yeah.
Makes himself look like an old man and lives that part in front of the public 100% of the time.
Yeah. But it got Andy Kaufman to that point where he got in some serious trouble and obviously like mentally broken because of what was happening. And obviously the same thing happened to Jim Carrey playing the part of him in the film. He basically embodied Andy Kaufman to the point where, like you see in the documentary, there's all the guys on set at Taxi going, this is so surreal, he's exactly like him. And you can see them in the background looking at him with such disdain, some of them, because he's just interfering as Tony Clifton with the filming, and they're like, this is exactly what it was like, and it's just as horrible but also just as joyful to see this happening.
I saw some really good interviews actually with what's his name, the guy that you just mentioned from Twins,
Danny DeVito.
Sorry, yeah. Saw some really good interviews with Danny DeVito, talking about the whole experience and stuff, and just the absolutely mental situations that he was put in, where he'd basically arranged for Tony Clifton going along with Andy Kaufman. He'd arranged for Tony Clifton to get an audition to play a part.
Yeah.
And so Tony Clifton turns up and does his thing and just absolutely trolls this bloody read-through of a script. And the director phones Danny DeVito back and says, I've got to fire him. I've got to get rid of this bloke. And Danny DeVito's arguing Tony Clifton's case and saying, well, if you're going to fire him, just make sure it's about... Just tell him it's because of his bad timekeeping or something like that. Don't tell him it's because of anything else, like his bad acting or his attitude or anything.
And let Andy know, because he's kind of got Andy got him the chance to be. Yeah, I can't even imagine what it was like for the real manager at the time, because he's there on set.
I like the fact that they had Danny DeVito playing the manager as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I've not seen the manager in real life, I don't think.
He's in the documentary about 3 times.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think we've told anyone what these 2 films are, have we?
So, Man in the Moon is basically Jim Carrey. It's a
biopic.
It's a biopic of Andy Kaufman, and it's Jim Carrey playing him. He was a comedian who went to extraordinary and extreme levels with getting a laugh from someone, whether it was just him and his comedy partner or whether it was a certain section of society, to the point where he did things like wrestling women.
He was the original internet troll before the internet, wasn't he?
Yeah, but internet troll that was funny and not like...
There's no malice.
No malice.
Not malice.
Yeah. There was no malice, whereas,
But his stuff was done to get a rise out of people.
Yeah, he was either playing the villain or playing the goodie.
Yeah.
He always chose to go one or the other. And for a while, he kind of got stuck in the idea of being the villain. And it had effects
That's the
on
Tony
him.
Clifton character.
Yeah. And also some of the Andy Kaufman characters when he wrestled women and stuff.
Oh, yeah, true.
There was a lot of that. He became the villain for the wrestling.
Intergender
Wrestling Federation,
yeah.
But then Jim and Andy is the film of the behind-the-scenes footage that they wouldn't allow to come out because of the way that that Jim Carrey became playing the part of Andy Kaufman. He embodied it so much that he kind of lost his mind a bit.
The studio didn't want Jim Carrey to look like an asshole, basically.
He methoded the fuck out of it.
Yeah, beyond any level that I thought possible. But it's weird. There's one bit in it where he, in the documentary, where he's talking to Bob, Andy Kaufman's actual writing partner, who's probably in about his early 60s now, maybe a little bit older. He's chatting to him as Andy, and then a second later he's Jim, and then half a second later he's then Tony Clifton. He swaps between them almost like naturally.
Yeah.
While talking to him, and you watch it happen on camera, and you're like, "That's actually really disturbing." Like, that's not just acting. That's like you've gone mentally too far down that direction. That you are being controlled by 2 other people.
I think that's the point of the documentary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people are kind of aware that Jim Carrey's lost it a bit recently and gone a bit, space-o.
But then part of that's probably to do with his girlfriend dying and stuff as well. He's had a lot of personal problems as well.
But the suggestion is it's this part that did it. So he came out the other side after method acting the Andy Kaufman and Tony Clifton characters for such a long time. Yeah. He just forgot who he was.
Well, he says it in the documentary, doesn't he? He says, I came out the other side not really knowing who I was and came out the other side to everything.
Yeah.
And didn't know how to deal with it. It is very disturbing. But then, at the same time, like, there's moments in it where Andy Kaufman's actual dad and sister and brother are there, and they meet him as Andy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't break character.
No, that's right.
And they don't seem freaked out.
He had a father-son argument with Andy Kaufman's dad as Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Which is just...
Well, no, that's the actor.
Oh, it's the actor.
Yeah, it's
you're
the
right.
actor.
Yeah, you're
Sorry,
right.
Yeah, the actor of... And the actor playing Andy Kaufman's father suddenly gets so confused by what's going on with Jim Carrey being Andy Kaufman, they end up having an actual father-son argument, even though... And he walks away from it going... What just happened? I don't understand. I just had a...
What I'm getting confused with is Andy Kaufman's daughter, isn't it? So Andy Kaufman's daughter never met Andy Kaufman.
No, she didn't know until after he'd died, unfortunately.
Jim Carrey arranged to meet her.
Someone contacted him.
And they went and sat in a room for several hours and chatted while he was in the character. Yeah. While he was in character.
Yeah.
Which is just...
Well, my girlfriend made a good point with that bit. Like, that's kind of more disturbing because Jim Carrey didn't actually know Andy Kaufman, and although he spent a lot of time around the family and Bob and Andy's girlfriend / wife, I can't remember if they actually got married. There's an element of like he's got to know him as a person, but how can he know what Andy would have said to his daughter meeting her?
For the first time.
And that's quite disturbing for me. Like, maybe he was just very nice and kind of stayed in character but didn't say still had enough control not to say anything that would be the wrong thing to say and give her a different. But still, like, that must have been disturbing. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think
it's a bit out of order. But there's two ways of looking at that. If you can channel the spirit of another person, then fine. If that's what he did, then...
But then I think if she understands that he's stuck in character when she came to set, if someone's explained to her, look, he's lost it. He thinks he is Andy Kaufman. He can't, you can meet him. You can meet him and have a chat with him, but he can't switch it off. So it's going to be very weird. And if she got to meet Andy Kaufman's dad and brother and sister and all that, and got to meet the family first, and then went and spent a bit of time with him because they're like, he is acting just like your dad would have been and was, then maybe that's a bit different. But we don't. They didn't explain that, and I just found the whole thing a bit disturbing. So
the other thing is, at that time, he was one of the biggest actors in the world, wasn't he? Like they even say in that.
Yeah.
They even say in the documentary, in the space of like 24 months or something, he made The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
True.
This was a little while after all that, but he was still, still at the forefront of his career.
Yeah.
And
and then 15 years ago, wasn't it, that this movie was made?
20
years ago.
1999, I think it came out.
Right.
So nearly 20. Yeah. Because he then went on to do number 23.
Yeah.
Which again is another mentally quite disturbing film, because that number, a lot of people have got lost in that number.
I've not seen it all. I started watching it. I can't remember why I stopped.
I really enjoyed it. It's another film I thought he was very good in.
Okay.
But
his audition tape is unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like he really wanted the part, and I think they were going to possibly give it to somebody else, and he just recorded an audition tape, but
45-minute audition tape.
It's just literally he's already in character and already made up. Like they could have just started shooting the film straight away, couldn't they?
Yeah, True. It was beat for beat. Like that footage is beat for beat exactly what he did. I think on his first Saturday Night Live, and then some bits from other
where they put the radio, the Mighty Mouse theme tune on.
Yeah,
and he mimed along to certain parts.
Which was his first kind of breakthrough when he got the comedy improv. He managed to convince the owner there that he was actually from a fictional place called Caspia, in the Caspian Sea, to give him a chance to do his comedy. And then he'd get up and he'd do the bad impressions, and he'd do the Mighty Mouse thing first, then he'd do his bad impressions, and then he'd do the Elvis to finish. And it's you see the footage of him doing it in clubs, and then the footage of him doing it Saturday Night Live and other places, and it's just so tonally perfect. He never gets it wrong. And then Jim Carrey does an audition tape, which is beat for beat exact. Every little movement is pretty much there.
All the weird eye movements,
the right shoulder movement.
Yeah.
He does this weird right shoulder roll. He does little finger twitches occasionally, and then stands dead straight. It's eerie, very eerie.
A bit where the director just phones him up, and he's just he's so exhausted by the whole thing, isn't he? And this is Oscar winning director, One for the Cuckoo's Nest. So it's not just a director. It's it's Milos Forman, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's just on the phone, and he's like, "Is Sandy there?" And he's like, "No." Is Tony there? And he's like, "No." It's like, "Good. I just wanted to hear Jim once.
just wanted to talk to Jim.
I just wanted to talk to Jim."
But yeah, I mean, he really did put him through his paces, didn't he? And the guy was like, I just want one take. Just give me one take that I can use, please.
This when he's doing lacquer and he's like, it is not good enough. I want to do another go. And starts screaming at him like, it's not good. And he's like, no, Andy, then he's getting confused who he's talking to. And he's like, no, it's fine. That one was really good. And he's like, no. It's amazing. Absolutely.
And that guy is talking, tell Jim Carrey he's really good. Yeah, I'll pass the message on. He's literally talking to him, but he's just like, right now I'm not Jim Carrey.
But then the people on set as well, one guy walks up to Jim Carrey at one point when he's being Andy Kaufman and goes, "Oh man, I'm a big fan, Jim," and he's like, "Oh, I'd let Jim know."
Yeah,
it doesn't so naturally normal though. He actually is.
But then he's and he also does that thing where he's like, Well, everyone's banging on about Jim Carrey all the time. I never see him on this set. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
he
he's
doesn't do
supposed to be in this
any
movie
work.
and he doesn't. He's just not here doing nothing.
That's
And
the
it's just
Tony
like-
Clifton
Yeah.
character saying that, isn't it? I remember.
But then also, I think there's an element of there's certain bits where, as Tony Clifton, he is saying some fucking horrible things about himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's that thing of it's an
Yeah.
excuse to let out some of the anxiety and anger he's got about himself and about his life through the
in
character.
some ways, that could be
And
very therapeutic.
Yeah,
couldn't it?
but I think it went too far the other way. It went from being therapeutic to, because he knows he's doing it, to being uncontrollable, and then he ended up like almost damaging his own self through doing that.
Yeah.
And then the Andy version of him is like making silly little jokes about Jim Carrey, but like tongue in cheek, like little bit of banter kind of jokes that are okay. But even then, you're just thinking, neither of these guys are really saying a huge amount of nice things about you, and you are them. So do you mean what you're saying about yourself? Do you really hate yourself that much?
Or is he just being self-deprecating?
Yeah. Is he doing it for comedy value, or is he fully lost himself and is actually... This is actually how he feels, and this is a way of getting... I don't know.
It's no
mad.
shock that another comedian's got rampant mental health issues.
Well, no.
And they
no.
use their comedy as some form of therapy.
Well, Joe Rogan on his podcast the other day was saying, I don't know anyone that's a good comedian that hasn't had either a weird home life or some mental disturbance in their childhood.
Right.
So...
With
it seems to be common.
With regards to actors that go too far down the rabbit hole and get into part and then forget who they are, do you think there are people working in Hollywood that help them like reset their characters?
No.
Do you think there should be?
Yeah, there's probably like a $700 an hour shrink that just talks these guys off of a cliff.
Yeah.
Like Daniel Day-Lewis has definitely got one that he's just lives next door
but I
to him
don't think
or
it's
something.
given to him by the studio. I think it's something you have to work out yourself.
Yeah, they
Like,
get-
I need this person.
They're
when I
quite
come
well
out of this
paid,
film.
aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. So they just go, I know when I finish a film, I'm going to need a counsellor to help me through the change process.
Because I can't be
This
Abraham
one's
Lincoln
supposed to be really good.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
In the same way they've all got personal trainers to get them ready for their
Yeah.
roles these days.
Yeah.
And Chris Pratt's just like, I've had 17 beers and now I've got to be in Guardians again. He has to go to the gym. He hates it, doesn't he?
Yeah, his
Oh, really?
his wife made comments in an interview a while ago, Anna Faris, saying like she doesn't like it. She's like, I prefer the Chris Pratt where I can just cook for him and I can cuddle his slightly fat belly and be
Give him
comfortable with
beers.
him and give him beers and we have fun. She's like, when he's got these personal trainers, he's just not him.
Fair enough.
So like that's one level, and then you've got method acting level, and then you've got Jim Carrey level. I can't think of any other actors that have gone that far that they've
Daniel
proper lost
Day-Lewis
their mind.
He does it for every
notoriously
part,
does it, doesn't
Yeah.
he? Like,
Yeah,
didn't
but
he,
he's
like,
never-
Didn't he nearly stab an extra up in Gangs in New York?
Oh,
'Cause
really?
he was just like, yeah.
You're on the wrong side of the street or something.
I know in Lincoln, he made sure that every single person on set referred to him as Mr. President.
Yeah.
He
But
went,
there's a difference between him going to that level and then, like, you don't hear about Daniel Day-Lewis then being so mentally broken afterwards. You know, he's always gone to that level, but I think he
Because
finds...
he takes 5 years off between films.
I think he finds a
Goes and
point
cobbles some
and then...
shoes.
Yeah, but then, like, Jim Carrey's
But
not...
every time
not,
he finishes...
not being Ace Ventura or The Mask, is he? He's just acting in those, and you can see it's his silly face-pulling...
yeah, that Jim Carrey
Yeah.
is the one that I remember from like in Living Colour and all those
Yeah.
crazy programs, Saturday Night Live and stuff.
When he's doing all that, when they show you his early stuff, you just go, no human has ever been able to move their face and neck in quite that
No.
way.
No.
He's
very
got a
true.
neck that's about 8 foot long when it needs to be, isn't it?
Very true. And that was part of his acting in Living Colour. Actually, is like doing all this crazy stuff with his belly, and, like, pushing it out and sucking it in and stuff. And like, yeah, he's a very flexible, bendy man.
Yeah. And what else are you going to do with that other than entertain people?
It's that.
No.
I tell you, the peak of his physical comedy is in Me, Myself and Irene, when he gets kicked. She kicks him in the face down that bank.
Yeah,
And there's just this bit
over that
where he
post,
goes
doesn't he?
flying down the bank, but there's just this one little bit that only Jim Carrey would have done where he just sort of pops up again
Yeah,
halfway down
yeah.
at a really obtuse angle, and it's
Yeah.
just, I'm just like,
Boom,
that's
boom.
just the best Jim Carrey. That and
you know it's
a
him.
goose.
And you know it's him. Like when he's rolling down that bank, it's not a stuntman because of the way it happens. There's no stuntman that can replicate that movement. Have you not?
Kicking, and in Liar when he's like, "I'm kicking my ass."
Definitely not seen it.
You never seen Liar Liar either.
Which one? Liar Liar.
Yeah, when he beats himself up in the bathroom. Are you okay to continue? He's like, yeah. So it's just could go. No, see, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to load my Plex server up. I'm just going to get every Jim Carrey movie from the 90s,
go and watch
including Batman Forever, because he's fucking brilliant
film.
in that.
It's the best part of that film, isn't it?
Yeah.
But go and spend your time watching some Andy Kaufman footage.
Yeah,
it's really educational.
It's amazing to see someone at the point of entertainment timing that he was doing what he did, like on mainstream TV, like interrupting shows. There was another show I think called Fridays, which was a bit like Saturday Night Live in America. I was on the ABC
on a Friday instead. You say?
Yeah. On ABC, and he, with one of the actors on set, they were doing like a sketch about 4 people in a restaurant, and they go and get a bit of weed, and they come back, and he basically just goes, "I can't do this." And one of the other actors was in on it, and no one else was. And he throws the guy walks off, grabs the cue cards, and throws them down in front of him. And to embarrass him, and he throws a drink in the guy's face, and this fight breaks out between the director and everyone else, like on set suddenly, and they cut to adverts. And when they then the main guy and the actor
Studio
and
boss,
Andy Kaufman all kind of, in reality, it was the actor Andy Kaufman and the boss all suddenly went, "This has been happening. This is all just been a joke." They cut back to after the commercials.
Andy Kaufman was supposed to tell the public that
was what was going on, and he goes, "No, they're all liars. They're trying to make me say that this was not planned and blah blah blah. I guarantee." And then he's like, "T, I told you, like they're saying to go to adverts," and then it cuts to adverts again. And so he just used to cause the most insane trouble, like to the point where, like, even with the wrestler. Like he got to a point where the wrestler was in on it, but he almost started to hate him, and then became really good friends with him because they kind of would spend time together working out what they were going to do. Whereas on set with Jim, like there was none of that.
That's that weird bit.
There's none of that. Like he's not in on it with him. So there's this almost animosity.
It's almost like there's a tiny little bit of research that Jim Carrey didn't do there, was it?
I don't know if that's it. I think it's just he got so absorbed that I don't know if he could handle. I don't know. It's so weird. It's so weird.
I remember the rest of them being like, "No, me and Andy were mates in real life.
Yeah,
and you're being really horrible to me."
Yeah.
What was his name? Dave Lasseter, was it the wrestler? Something like that. Can't remember.
Yeah. I can't remember. I hate wrestling.
What about the idea that Andy Kaufman isn't dead then?
Yeah, so there are lots of rumours because his writer friend Bob has been seen at events where Tony Clifton is, and some people believe that is still Andy Kaufman being Tony Clifton sometimes, but I just don't. I don't believe, as far as he would go, that he would ever actually do that to his loved ones.
See, his writer has just compounded the idea and gone along with it and said, "Yeah, it is a bit. Andy is not dead." And
but then
he will reveal himself when he's ready.
But then he's probably doing that for some entertainment reason in his head that is part of some bigger joke. Maybe they had arranged something before he died of like a video to release years after he's dead that no one will see other than Bob until a certain point to make out that he's still alive, and he'll have old man makeup on and it will be an old piece of footage, but I honestly don't believe he would have gone that far.
Fair enough.
And looking at some of the footage, like he wouldn't be able to stop himself from doing something else in between then and now. Do you know what I mean? Like he couldn't control himself.
Well, it fooled me to the point of like I said earlier, it fooled me to the point of forgetting how the film ended. And I thought I remembered it wrong. Literally remembered that he had come back to life at the end.
Yeah.
I suppose because it's got that Tony Clifton bit.
Yeah, which confuses a lot of people. But then that's the nod to
Yep.
You know, the fact that the character can be played by various people and isn't always played by Bob, and is he still alive?
Have you seen any humorous conspiracy theories about
I've seen a couple.
who he might be?
One I saw was that the guy that everyone said was the burn victim that everyone said was actually Michael Jackson. Did you ever see that guy?
Victim?
There was a burn victim in America who had like virtually no ears, like no facial hair or hair, and his skin was very, like, he'd obviously had reconstructive surgery.
Right.
For a long time, everyone was saying that was actually Michael Jackson after he died,
Right.
because that kid suddenly appeared on, that young adult suddenly appeared on TV. You couldn't tell his age, and he was saying he was friends with Michael, and he's so sad he's dead, and all this, and people were like, no, it's actually Michael because of his voice.
Right.
There are some theories that actually that's Andy Kaufman. And it's just like, in what world would he go to those lengths to hide himself in plain sight? Like, and wait until Michael Jackson dies to come out and have a bit of fun? Like,
my favourite one, I put it on my Facebook page the other day, was, is Donald Trump Andy Kaufman in disguise?
That's fucking brilliant.
That would be hilarious. I would find that massively funny. But yeah, I'd... That's a good one.
Is Kim Jong-un Andy Kaufman?
in a rubber sausage suit. Oh dear.
Who else?
Oh,
is it really?
Theresa May.
No. That's not funny. There's no humour in that, so I can't imagine him doing it.
So yeah, I'd recommend for anyone, if you want to take a deep dive,
if you like Jim Carrey.
If you like Jim Carrey
Kaufman,
or any stand-up comedy at all, go and watch some of the original footage of Andy Kaufman, because it's fucking genius. And this guy, man, he was just way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time.
So there's loads of stuff you can watch. There's loads of videos all over YouTube of his old shows and things. And there's, of course, the documentary that we've been talking about, Jim and Andy, that's available on Netflix.
Yep.
And Man on the Moon,
which weirdly isn't available on Netflix.
Is it not?
No, I thought they would. It was on there ages ago, but they've taken it off. Okay. So
I made a point of watching
timing.
Man on the Moon before I watched the Jim and Andy documentary, and sat the missus down and watched it with her.
I think it makes more sense that way round, but you can still watch it the other way round. So
as I'm about to find out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But yes,
it's a bit sad recently though that some other person came out of the woodwork saying that they were his daughter.
Oh, really?
And wanted his body exhumed. And I think in the end there was like they did other DNA tests and things like that, and just went, well, no, you're not who you say you are, so we're not going to exhume his body.
Right.
So it all kind of got pushed away. But like, you know, there's weird things like that, and I don't know if these are people trying to prove that he's still alive by trying to convince them
What's
they need
the most
to
extreme thing
dig
I can
up
do
body.
to get a reaction and get his body dug up. Where people are fucked up, aren't they?
Yeah. Not that he wasn't.
People
he was
are
obviously
crazy.
He was obviously a bit mentally out there himself.
Here's a conundrum for you.
Go on.
When does grave robbing become archaeology?
Very true.
Where's that line get drawn?
After 100 years, who knows?
Yeah, that is a good point. It has to be like within like a few thousand years in my eyes, or maybe 1,000 years really.
I think the answer to that is probably when the human race forgets it was a graveyard.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you just dig in to find
it's just a pyramid. It's not someone's burial chamber. It's just a pyramid.
We're just trying to put some flats up here.
Cool, there's some fucking conspiracy theories about those fuckers, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, they're so perfectly perpendicular within the North Pole, you couldn't possibly have done it without aliens helping. There's fucking new slaves, mate.
Or Tony Clifton.
Andy Kaufman built the pyramids along with Libsyn's Sticher.
Yeah. There we are. Right, have we got anything else to say about this?
No, just go and watch it.
Yeah, go and watch both of them. Go and watch Man in the Moon, and go and watch Jim and Andy. Both of them are in my top 10 favourite people that make me laugh in history, to be honest. As like both specifically meant to make me laugh, not as in like Donald Trump, who makes me laugh and will end up being in history.
I find with Jim Carrey, he's a bit over the top for me, and I can only ever watch his movies once.
Depends what it is.
The second time around, I find them annoying. But this has given me a massive amount of respect for the man.
Yeah, The Mask I can watch over and over. Like, it's nowhere near as dark or weird as the comics, but he's fucking good in it.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones like Liar Liar, which once every so often, once you've forgotten it, is actually quite a fun film to watch on a Sunday afternoon
good.
with a hangover.
Such a beautiful hangover film, that.
Yeah.
I'm kicking my ass.
Right, yeah, and I need to go and watch
The
myself
Claw.
and Irene.
Yes.
So, yes. Right, okay, where can we find you, Adam?
In the usual places, Adam Gatchell Arts on Facebook and YouTube. That's GATERELL for Gatchell, because I realise I always say it, but I don't know if people know how to spell it.
Oh, it's always linked below anyway.
Cool, it's linked below. And if this is coming out on Thursday or Friday this week, then this Saturday at the Key Arts on the Isle of Wight, you can see me doing a performance. And next week on Thursday, I've got my comedy night at the Anchor in Cowes on the Isle of Wight. And then the week after that, I will be supporting Son of Dave. So, yeah, see you then.
Patreon.com/Adam Draws for Money.
I'm going to have to set that up now, aren't I? And try and convince people to give me money to fund my business so I can get a new laptop.
Artistprostitution.com.
Yeah.
Ross, where can we find you?
You can find me playing video games on PlayStation Network.
And not at work. And not
at work. You can find me in the cinema watching Star Wars Thursday and Friday.
You're going to go twice?
Yeah, my brother works at cinema though, so don't know.
Of course,
it's just free tickets.
Cool. What's your handle for the PlayStation Network?
It's rosscobaby.
Rosscobaby. Go and find him, kick his ass, kill him with a tank. And me, you can find my music page, Chris Quinton's Music and Things, on Facebook. You can find me hanging out on the SNEW with the Crew Facebook page as well. If you fancy writing into us,
yes, do it.
Give us a recommendation for an episode. Ask us some questions about anything we've spoken about, anything you want. You can either message us via Facebook, or you could tweet at us at SNEW with the Crew, or you could email us.
Definitely send us some questions, because if we have a special, maybe random off-topic Christmas show or something like that, maybe we might need some questions from people, so we've got something to chat about.
True. Our email address is podcast@snewnetwork.com. Do write in and let us know.
Yeah.
Right, should we get out of here?
Yes, goodbye.
Bye.
You've been a listener, we've been SNEW with the Crew. Thank you very much.
It's alright, shitbag.
Bye. Thank you very much.